All yours.
Okay. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan for arranging this, Brother Brar and Dr. Fiaz and the team. So I'm just going to go through the open day. We've done this over the last few years, so we've made some changes to the presentation this time. So hopefully there's some new areas for those who have been here in the past. We'll take questions at the end, inshallah. Anything pressing, do sort of mention it in the chat. So schedule is background, purpose, role of the mosque, introduction, planning, getting the most out of the day, how to deliver a tour, some of the activities, and then the post-event, and then the Q&A at the end, inshallah. So before we begin, just a little bit about UKM. Founded in 1962, it began by establishing mosques, providing Islamic education, organizing community activities, and producing English literature on Islam. Over time, it's focused on helping Muslims positively contribute to UK society and now operates around 40 centres and around 60 branches across the UK. It promotes mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and better understanding of Islam, whilst also encouraging its members and supporters to be active, responsible citizens contributing to this country's well-being. So just an intro about the organisation that we're part of. So open days have been taking place across some of our UKM branches for over 35 years. MCB started the national campaign, bringing mosques together and doing it as a national campaign around 11 years ago. So this is the 11th Visit My Mosque campaign. So I just want you to really reflect on one point, and this is just a thought just before we begin. So just a reflection, and I want you to just go through this scenario. Imagine you're standing here outside this building. This is the Buddha Padipa Temple, a Buddhist temple in Wimbledon. And you're standing at the bottom of them stairs, going to be going in through the door into the building, into the temple. You've never been inside before. You don't know anyone inside either. You've been invited to an open day and you're literally just about to walk through the door. So you've seen an invite and you thought, I'll go down and see what it's like. And just as you're about to walk through the door, I want you to have a think and mention right in the chat, what might you be thinking or feeling at that time? That you're just literally going to go up them stairs and walk through the doors into the temple that you've never been in before. So if you just write a few, just over the next 30, 40 seconds, what might you be thinking or feeling as you're standing there waiting to go inside? And, you know, some may feel apprehensive, some may feel worried, some may feel anxious, some may not know what to do. And just say you've not received any information, not even a letter or an invite telling you what to expect, what you need to do when you're in there. So there could be different feelings that people will have. And what would really make you feel more comfortable or comfortable enough to walk through them doors without having any fear or worry? And again, if you can write down in the chat what kind of things you'd be thinking. And again, this is just a reflection. Some people may not write anything down, but it's just really to make you feel, what would you think if you knew more about the event, you knew someone in there, you'd sort of heard positive stories, you knew what it would look like, you knew what the dress code was, you knew a smiling face there, you may feel a bit more comfortable walking through the door. Now, if you replace the temple with one of our mosques, this is one of our mosques in Manchester. For many of our visitors, that's exactly how non-Muslims may feel standing outside the door. First time visiting a big building, don't know much about them, seen an advert somewhere on the social media page, haven't really received an invite, and you're standing at the door. So I think the point of that was just to give you an idea of how we would feel if we were at a place of worship that we didn't recognize, and how many feel when they come to our places of worship. And you know, when we go into a mosque, we go to any mosque, we understand what the mosque is, where to take our shoes off, where you pray, what the adhan means, where men and women go, how to behave. We don't even think about it, we take it for granted. But for someone entering a mosque for the first time, none of this is going to be that obvious. And it's important that we look at it from other people's perspective. And that's what we want to talk about today. A successful open day isn't simply open your doors. It's really about making people feel comfortable enough to walk through them, confident enough when they're there to ask you them questions that they want to ask, and welcomed enough when they leave with a positive experience. And it's really important when we think about it. Why do these days matter? Why do we do a Mosque Open Day? Every year, Brother Fiaz, Dr. Fiaz, Brother Ibrahim, and the team, Sister Madiha, everyone puts together a lot of effort into promoting these activities and encouraging people. And it's really important why they're important. You welcome people who have never stepped inside a mosque. So you're opening your doors for them. It's an opportunity to meet, give visitors the opportunity to meet other Muslims personally. For many people, it may be what they see on the news. Understand, experience the mosque, learn about Islam and ask questions openly. And then it's that building that relationship with your neighbors, faith groups, and wider community. So many times you hear stories about neighbors who've never been to the mosque, and it's that connection that you can build. And those positive experiences can turn into lasting understanding and relationships, and that can help build trust. So again, very important reasons why we need to participate in these activities. And sometimes we say our mosques are open all day, every time, they're open from morning till evening. But for some people, it may still feel as if it's closed. Someone may have lived, and these are real life stories, these are not just made up, lived half a mile from a mosque, or even on the same road as a mosque, never been invited to the mosque, never had a reason to visit the mosque, and never felt that they would be allowed in. So a mosque open day changes that whole idea. So what can happen if one person comes through your mosque doors? You get lots of people coming through. But some of the feedback that we've had in the past, they meet a Muslim. There's been places where someone's met a Muslim for the first time, not in areas where there's lots of Muslims, but in far, people have traveled from elsewhere. They can actually change a misconception that they have about Islam, something negative that they've always misunderstood. They can ask something that they were afraid to ask. If you're open and welcoming and they have that friendly relationship, they could ask you something that they've always been worried about. Tell their family about their experience. Maybe they work in a school, they have children, and they come back and visit you. Eventually become a partner of some sort, a community partner, link up with the organization and become a friend of the mosque. So you can see all these benefits that you can have from opening your doors to the wider community. So it's not really showing people a building. It's about building relationships. And that's what we want to aim for when we're doing these open days. So if someone has never met a Muslim or visited a mosque, what do you think could be shaping their understanding of Islam? And again, I just want you to reflect on this for about 30 seconds. Someone who's never met a Muslim, and there's many parts of the country, many parts of the world where there's no Muslims nearby at all. The only information they get is from the media, social media, and they don't meet Muslims, they've never been to a mosque. So the question is really to reflect on this aspect of their understanding of Islam. So I want to really talk about this other area that's really important. And again, I know it's about open days, but it sort of links in with this as well. We hear the term Islamophobia, then the term changes to anti-Muslim hate, and now it's anti-Muslim hostility. But they all mean the same thing. And I just want to share some statistics with you just to give you an idea of why these kind of events are so important. So studies that have been done, research that's been done, surveys that have been done, they found only 32% of British public said they had a good understanding of Islam. This is from a few years ago. They also found that personally knowing someone who's a Muslim was associated with more positive views about Islam and Muslims. Research done in Australia found 70%, 7 in 10, similar to the British survey, knew little or nothing about Islam or Muslims. And lots of other studies have shown similar kind of stats and information. And this is the problem. Limited knowledge creates space for assumptions and misconceptions that grow. And sometimes you think, where do these perceptions come from? And these are studies, again, that were done. One that was done by the University of Birmingham. They found almost 1 in 4 people hold negative views of Muslims. More than 1 in 4 believe of these Sharia no-go areas that I've mentioned in the media and social media. And prejudice and hate towards Islam is almost 3 times higher than towards any other religion. The research also highlighted an interesting problem. People have limited knowledge about Islam, but they still feel confident making judgment about it. And you see that all the time. People talking about Muslims and Islam, even though they know nothing or very little. And then this is a really interesting study on movies, Hollywood movies that you see globally released. And this was done a few years ago. It showed Muslims are underrepresented and stereotyped in global cinema. Around one-third of Muslim characters are portrayed as perpetrators of violence and over half as victims. And while Muslim women are often depicted as passive, oppressed, or needing to be liberated. And you hear this often as well. And again, if you look at social media, a study in 2022 in USA that found that some of the major social media platforms collectively failed to act on 9 out of 10 posts containing anti-Muslim hatred, even if they're reported to moderators. So you can see the challenge that we have. And why does engagement matter now? And you see from some evidence that 56% of Muslims surveyed, they'd experienced Islamophobia or hate in the previous year. 1 in 6 of the wider public were reported as holding concerning views towards Muslims. This is from last week. Over 1,000 cases reported of anti-Muslim hate in London in just 6 months. That's more than there were in the whole year of 2023. And another study from BMT, 70 attacks on mosques across the UK in the whole year, and that works out around one mosque attacked every 5 days. And you have to remember, these are not just statistics that I'm sharing, these are people that are affected by this. But then there's another area that you have to look at as well. These same studies have found that people who know Muslims tend to have more positive views. If they engage with Muslims, have interactions, work with them. So that's a positive. 7 out of 10 Muslims still regard the UK as a good place to be Muslim. And it found that there's public support for action against anti-Muslim hate as well. So it shows that, why so many misconceptions may exist. You can see the different ways that people get their information. And we need to ensure that our open day events are of a high standard and relatable to the audience. It's not a lesson on fiqh or where you do a dars and you tell people that don't know anything about Islam. You've got to make it very relatable and very basic. And to ensure this happens, it's important that we plan for the event. So we move on to the next section, which is really around planning. And what should we be thinking about when we're planning for an event? Remember, your first impression always lasts. If you look at that gentleman at the start, or the lady that I mentioned standing outside a temple, that impression, how they're treated the moment they walk in, how they're welcomed, that will last. The right intention is important as well for us, for any good work that we do. It's important that we make dua, because success is from Allah, and planning is important, a part of that success. And if you fail to plan, then they say you're planning to fail. So what we should be doing, we're about 4 weeks away from an open day. If we go by the date, some may do it a week or so after. But review your feedback and plans from the last year's open day that you had. Reflect and learn. If you're not going to look at what you did in the past, the mistakes that you made or the good things that you did, then you're likely to do the same things again this year. Look at a date. If you haven't decided on a date, then design one, get one straight away. Design a poster. Our team at the national team, they can help you design a poster. They can help you with customized one for your mosque, give you lots of information as well. There's lots of information that's available that you can use. And you need to start looking at food, allergies, and just what you're going to do for refreshments. A full risk assessment should be completed. It's important when you're going to have people coming, children coming. You need to risk assess and make sure it's safe for people that are attending. Safeguarding measures, especially with children coming in. Security and safety arrangements should be planned and explained to volunteers from the outset. And first aid kits should be available. You don't want anyone to fall or injure themselves or cut their finger, and then you're looking, where do we get a plaster from? Let's go down to Tesco. It's 2 minutes away. We'll drive down. That's really not acceptable. Make a guest list if you haven't already got one. If you have, you should have one from last year if you've done it before. Lists of your schools, stakeholders, councils, authorities. Get people invited. And you need to invite people early because people do book ahead. Contact your neighbours. You've invited the wider public, but also your neighbours as well. Look at registration links so you can have a database for people that you can invite for other events as well. And make sure you follow processes such as GDPR. And different ways to do it. You can do it on a Microsoft form. Most of you in UCAN will have an account with Microsoft. There's Ticketailor, Eventbrite, or Google Forms. So whatever you prefer or whatever you've used before. And then letter templates can be provided as well. We've got templates that can be sent to you once you register. And it has lots of resources that you can use. So you just edit the name and you can utilize them. Social media packs, how do you engage with media? And again, Sister Madiha, Brother Brad, they're doing some work around this, and they can hopefully give you more information if you contact them. And as mentioned, we've got lots of resources that you can use. So if you have if you've not got anyone experienced, then look at inviting someone who can talk and answer some challenging questions. And it doesn't mean you have to send everyone a letter, emails, calls, text messages, different ways of contacting people. And really important, something that we sometimes missed is get your congregation involved. Engage them, make announcements, start making announcements at Jummah telling people we're all holding an open day on this date. Invite your work colleagues, your neighbors, your friends. That can really help because that brings that personal touch and it can bring them to the mosque as well. Put posters around, look at utilizing them at local centers and digital outreach. Everyone is now on social media. Use digital outreach to engage with the wider public. And congregation engagement we touched on. It's really important if you announce it at your khutbah. Have an initiative such as bring a guest, bring a neighbor, tell all the namazi, your congregation. We want, everyone as much as possible to bring a guest, get people registered. It's a good way of bringing people closer. And again, you can do some of the points that we've mentioned earlier on. Now, one of the areas that we want to focus on, we touched on the risk, every 5 days the mosque is attacked. And again, it sounds shocking and really bad, but that's what some data suggests. So it's important that we do take security seriously. So if you go onto the UKM website, there's lots of resources around mosque safety. But this is just one slide around what you should be looking at. Risk assessment we've touched on earlier. When you're appointing volunteer leads, have a safety lead as well. Brief the team where the fire exits are, where the first aid boxes are on safeguarding, evacuation if there's a fire or any problems. Entry, make sure you have a clear entrance, but people know where to enter from. Secure restricted areas, so don't have everything open, where you've got your letters open. People may wander around, so make sure you've got restricted areas are secure. Stay alert, don't profile people, be reasonable. You don't want to make it into a fortress where people have to go through 100 checkpoints before they get into the mosque. Protect children and vulnerable people. Mosques are open to everyone, especially if you're doing it the day when there's going to be Salah time. There may be people there with children, vulnerable people. Make sure you're implementing a safeguarding policy. And these are all available from National if you haven't got one already. Be emergency ready if there ever is an emergency. Be ready what to do. Communicate calmly. Be calm. And we're going to talk about communication a little later. And record and review, your incidents. Learn near misses, any incidents that happen, you need to learn from these. Again, the next area in terms of planning is volunteers, such an important area. You need to ensure that when you're recruiting volunteers, you don't just say to people, turn up on the day and you can take up any role. You need to vet volunteers. This is a really important area. You don't want people saying inappropriate things. You need to have a mix of male and female, representative of your community, make it diverse. But they need to be vetted and ensure that they're sensible, they can talk, and they can conversate with people, and they're going to listen to what's being said. Allocate clear roles. So if it means a welcome desk, a registration desk, who's going to do the tours, who's going to cover the refreshments, who's going to be the security and safeguarding lead, who's going to man the car park, and who's going to be posting information on social media. So again, allocate roles, have team leaders. Provide an induction covering responsibilities, key messages, and always consider emergency procedures. And hold team discussions to build ownership and teamwork as well. This is a team activity. It's not a one-man person, so you need to ensure that everyone's on board. And really important is, we said at the start, the welcome is so important. Make it approachable and professional. Someone who's really pleasant, someone who can really engage, make people happy and smile. Have them at the entrance, welcoming people. And as I mentioned, it's really important people wear high-vis vests, name badges, they can be identified, and they're not just standing around doing nothing. Appoint team leads for all areas and names overall leads for the event as well. So everything really should be written down. And you should really have this from last year because some of this is repetition. Be ready to answer common questions or direct visitors to the right person. And if you don't know something, be open and honest about it. Show respect and sensitivity when you're welcoming guests from different backgrounds. Ensure that volunteer team is inclusive and representative of the local community. And emphasis should be given to involving training and young people. Make sure that you get youth involved so this work can continue over the foreseeable future. And everyone should have a clearly defined role, have a briefing. Extra volunteers should be recruited because you do have last minute absences as well. So we're roughly about 4 weeks away now. So we need to start, if you haven't already, start announcing it in your khutbahs. Send invites if you haven't already done so in the next 48 hours or so. If you haven't got a poster, reach out to Brother Ibrar and the team. and launch your online registration. In the next 2 weeks, you look at handing out the invite cards if you haven't already done so. And again, have a countdown towards the event. Display a banner externally and make sure you've at least had 1 or 2 meetings with your volunteers. The last week is really just mopping everything up and making sure everything's covered and you've not missed anything. Okay, so the other thing I touched on there was confirmed photography as well with consent, because you need to make sure that when you're taking photographs, they are checking if people are happy to be in photographs as well. So what should you do and not do on the day? And again, this is just really important on the open day. Many are coming for the first time. Some will have misconceptions about mosques, Islam, and Muslims. And sometimes the fear that many you hear from people is this fear that they're going to be converted to Islam, and that's definitely not the case. Because we believe as Muslims, there's no compulsion in religion, and this is just about having dialogue and engaging. It's not there trying to convert people. And briefly share about Islam during your tours. You can have a conversation. You may see part of the mosque, and we'll touch on that later. But build friendships so visitors leave with a warm and positive memory. Treat people fairly and justly, respecting diversity and other religions. This is not a competition about whose religion is better. And go out your way to assist guests and make them feel welcome. And again, we touched on what you need to be doing, the way you smile. Share the role of the mosque, how different people are involved in the mosque. You could tell them how a mosque works, how a mosque runs. Be patient with questions. Have an imam there or someone who's knowledgeable who can answer questions. And dress smart as well. Don't be coming in your shorts or just inappropriately dressed. You need to lead by example. And again, emphasizes again, you need to have female volunteers. You don't want to be telling them, Islam gives so many rights to women, and then they look around the mosque and it's all men. That doesn't really give a good impression. So sisters, and they actually do a very good job where you have sisters who are leading on these activities, doing, the tours of the mosque, welcoming. It's just really positive. So definitely consider that and make sure you've recruited people. Dietary options, people will be vegan. People may have nut allergies, so you need to ensure that's done. Make sure you have toilet paper as well. Toilets are clean. Again, notify the police, PCSO, work with local community groups. And it's good to have a professional photographer if you can. Let people observe the prayer, have activities for children, and keep timing flexible so people can come and go. Cleanliness, again, it's touched on. You have to make sure your place is clean. Many times people come to the mosque. Sometimes people say the way you get to know a building is by checking out the toilets. You go to the toilets, they stink. They're a mess. There's no paper. There's no soap. There's water all over the place. That's going to leave a negative impression, no matter how well you try to cover it in other areas. And make sure you spend a bit on your food as well. You might get someone that can sponsor, have healthy options as well, such as fruit, but do have good food for your guests. And on the day, these are some of the do nots. I mean, this is going to be shared with you later on as a presentation, but don't criticize religions. You're not there to do that. Don't pressure or attempt to convert guests. Don't guess answers. If you don't know, just say, I don't know. Don't separate people and say, okay, you guys come through this entrance. Many families will come together and you've got to be able to accommodate people as well. Don't be saying men go that way, women go that way, children go that way. You've got to be flexible and reasonable, and don't leave guests unattended to do whatever they want. You need to have people who are with them. And again, you need to make sure that don't take photos without consent. And this is really one of the important areas of essential. Now, this is just for you to think, what's, in your opinion, is one of the most essential skills needed for an open day? And I think we've covered it to some degree, but I just want to touch on it in a bit more detail with some scenarios. And again, you can write down what you think it could be. So because of time, I'll move on. It's good communication. Communication is so important. Communication with your volunteers, communication with your guests, communications with invitees who you're going to be inviting, communication with the national team, with the zone team. So communication is so, so important. And I just want to, look at the different ways you can communicate. Sometimes we think communication is just talking to people, verbal. But, evidence suggests that non-verbal is so important and it's something that can have a massive impact on people. And then you have written and then you have visual as well. So I just want to go through 3 real life scenarios that I've witnessed in the last sort of 7 to 8 months. And I just want to give you an idea in terms of communication by these scenarios. So this is something I was traveling a month ago abroad and I was going to the toilets area And in the terminal that we were at, this is in Manchester, there's a prayer space literally 2 minutes away from the toilets. Prayer space, they've got a wudu mate where you can actually do wudu. There's a space where you can offer your prayer, you can get changed for ihram and other things as well. And as I'm walking past the toilets, there's a sink area. There's about 7, 8 sinks, and there's a guy. As I walk past, there's three or four non-Muslims there washing their hands, and there's a guy with his foot in the sink, and he was washing, and there's water all over the place. And I just walked past him, and this is something I see. So, from one perspective, his thing is I'm preparing for my salah. Another person around him might be thinking, this is not great, not hygienic. Floors, water all over the place. Someone might slip. So it's not doing the wudu; it's where you're doing it. And then this is something we've seen, Salah. Again, someone's praying Salah, the volunteers tell you, please go upstairs. This hall is now full. And the person sees actually right in front of the door, there's no one standing in front of the door, goes and prays in front of the door. He then joins his Salah. Someone wants to leave the Salah straight away. They are now stuck because this person wanted to pray in front of the door and will take his time. And again, this is another example of how this can cause inconvenience to others. And something number three is something we see all the time. People blocking off other people's driveways because we want to go for Jummah. It's so important. We are running late, so we park in front of someone's drive. It's the only place I can see. And this is something that happened. Someone came to our mosque and said, I need to go I've got an appointment at the hospital. Someone's now blocked off my car. I can't leave the mosque. And this is a negative impression that people will get if that's how we behave. And again, we look at the first picture that we shared about the temple. It's looking through different people's eyes. Sometimes we always think about things from our own perspective. As Muslims, we need to do this and we need to do that. This is what we're on. But this is really today's focusing around looking through other people's eyes as well. And you need to look at what you're doing, what's going to be the impact, how might someone else see it, and could you do it in a way that's more considerate? Sometimes the issue isn't what we're doing, it's where, when, and how we do it. So if you look at this, the last scenario that we gave you, from the Muslim's perspective, he's parking his car. It was difficult to find. He only wanted to stay briefly. He didn't want to inconvenience anyone. But through the neighbor's eye, and this is not made up, this is what they're saying, I need to go to the hospital. Why is someone blocked off my own driveway? How do I get out of this driveway where there's hundreds of cars all over the place? And is this what happens whenever the mosque has an event? And, if you look at these, they're just good acts, wudu, salah, attending the mosque. But again, it's the unintended consequences that you can have. So think Islam, think about Islam when you're doing this. Look at the impact of your actions on others and always consider the consequences of your actions. And look at things from other people's perspectives as well. Think about how someone else may experience the situation that you're doing. As we saw earlier, the perspectives of a Muslim and a neighbor who isn't a Muslim. Look and listen, be aware of your surroundings and listen to others as well. And always act with consideration. Good acts should be accompanied by good conduct as well. You're praying, alhamdulillah, excellent, but do it with good, not without inconvenience others, and maintain rights and respect. We all know the hadith, Quran, mentions around the rights of neighbors, visitors, and those around us. So it's really important that we respect them people as well. So it's not what we say or do, it's how we say or do it. And that's really important. And that's the same principle when you're speaking with your visitors that are coming to your mosque. We may feel that we've got the right information. We have the Quran, we have the Hadith, but the way you communicate matters. So don't speak down to people. Don't make assumptions and don't become defensive and don't turn conversations into fake classes or debates. You're not there to win and don't give unnecessary complicated answers. It's perfectly acceptable to say, I'm not sure. I can find someone who can help you. And again, I just want to do a short reminder from the Quran in Surah chapter 3, verse 159. Had you been harsh or hard-hearted, they would certainly have dispersed from around you. So our message may be right, but how we communicate it really matters. And that's something I want you to take back from this, if that's the only thing that you take from today. Because people experience Islam through Muslims. And a visitor, they may not remember anything that you told them, but they'll remember how that welcome was, whether they were listened to, whether they answered their question, and how we treated other people. So our conduct should reflect the values that we're trying to communicate with people. Just want to touch on briefly on the activities that you do in a mosque. So again, a long list of activities that you can potentially have. Treasure hunts. I've seen some mosques do a samosa chart challenge, a Golgappa challenge. This was really interesting. Aisha radiallahu anha bead challenge. The bead, they made a bead, they had little beads, and some thread, and they asked children to try to make a bead out of it and related it to the story of Aisha radiallahu anha. You've got VR headsets. You have a quiz where you can ask people the basics of Islam, mosque tours, Quran recitation. They can listen and they can understand some of the verses. They can observe the as-salah and the adhan. And the inventions, sometimes you hear negativity about Islam, but you can talk about the 1001 inventions that exist. Taste food from different, you might have a diverse community, have food from different communities, and you can link it with the Quran as well. And there's lots of areas and ideas that you have. So if anyone has any ideas, please do share them in the chat if there's anything we've missed. So one of the activities is relating food with the Quran. You talk about this verse about fresh dates, and then you've got the verse around, about honey. Then you've got the fig and the olive, and then you've got the pomegranate. So you've got different fruits and foods mentioned in the Quran, and you can relate these foods. You can have them on display on a table and have a verse from the Quran, how the Quran, because people don't know what's in the Quran, people have misconceptions, but you can see, look, simple things like fruits, the benefits, these different foods are mentioned in the Quran. And then you can have them as people can try them. Try a bit of honey, have some pomegranate seeds, have different fruits cut that, prepared there that people can have. Quran displays as well. You can have a display of the Quran. Um, in terms of older Qurans, you could have some from 500 years old that you can show people. This is the Quran. This is how it's been exactly the same, and there's the different types that you have. Exhibitions, something that people have as well. And again, you can see different types of literature, different types of boards. And this is something that we brought in new this year, is around 1001 inventions. And these are posters that you can download on the website. And again, if you contact us at the end, Brother Abrar, myself, or someone from the team can share them with you. But this is like a timeline. You can print this off as a timeline over, a course of centuries, over a course of many years, and some of the scientific, the golden age of Islam, where Islam started, and some of the great inventions as well. And again, different parts of the world, how Muslims have contributed to all of this. And then again, these are some really interesting posters that you can have printed. And again, they're very good quality. You can just print them off and have them on display. And then you can relate to people as well, because people go to schools, how certain words are used, Muslim civilization, hospitals, about hospitals, how it's, surgical instruments, how they were invented in the golden age of Islam, and then inventions such as cameras, algebra, maths. So there's so much that you can relate people to and say, oh, did you know this? And it's all factual as well. So again, something to think about, inshallah. And then handling difficult questions, that's always a popular area because people will struggle and people will have these challenging questions that they want to ask. These are just a few examples. But again, if you have a quarter or a corner where you say, look, this is the Imam or this is one of our team members who can answer some of the questions, and they can then try to answer, or even in the group, you can have it as a group discussion as well. Food always goes down well. Make sure it's good quality food. Cakes being used in different areas. So there's some of the things that the activities that you can do. So much you can do. And again, you have to decide amongst your team what you want to do. The structure of the day, depending on the size of the mosque, if you've got dignitaries coming, if you've got local leaders, you can have a little short talk, a little session. You can just have tours and discussions. If you've got a small prayer space or a room, then have a chat with tea only and have a presentation on Islam that we can share with you. And if you don't have a mosque and only have a branch, then join one of the other local mosques as well, or you could do all of the above. So just a summary, make sure that you have someone welcoming and for registration. Hospitality is so important. We talked about communication, cleanliness, guided experience, have someone who can talk well, who can engage with people, speaks very good English, and never ever forget safety and respect. They're your guests. Make sure you respect them and make sure you keep everyone safe as well. So I just want to touch on this for the next few minutes. Tour of the mosque. Again, this is very important. Some places will have a mosque and they do a quick tour. So this is, you can show them pictures of the mosque, some beautiful mosques across the world. And some mosques in our organization are incredibly beautiful mosques as well. The inside of a mosque, you can show them pictures or you can take them around and show them what the inside of a mosque looks like. And the features of a mosque, the minaret, the dome, the mihrab, the minbar, the prayer time clock, the wudu facilities, and the madrasa that many mosques will have. So one of the main distinguishing features of a masjid is the tower. And you can tell them this is the minaret. Some mosques may not have a minaret, but you can explain this is where the muezzin, the person who calls the prayer, they would stand and call the prayer. Some places they would have loudspeakers. Nowadays we've got very good AV systems. But again, this is something that you can explain to them and show them some pictures as well. The dome, the distinctive shape, some mosques still have that dome. And again, you can talk about this essential feature. In hot countries, it can keep the inside of the building cool, and acoustically how it can help as well. So again, and if you've got a dome, you can actually go under the dome and talk and see how that sounds when you're talking under the dome. The mihrab, the wall, the direction that we face when we're praying towards Mecca, you can explain that to them as well. And it's usually a nice design at the front of the mosque. The imam, the leader of the prayer, will stand at the front. And then sometimes there's decorations at the front as well. And again, some pictures that you can see of different designs. You can show them your own when you have it. And then the minbar, the pulpit, you can explain that this is where it's a platform where the imam can stand. It's used at certain prayers, certain times, Eid, Jummah. And sometimes in other religions, they have this as well. And you can relate it to other religions where they have a platform that can be used for talking as well. Then prayer time clocks, again, there's changed over the years. You can see the one in the middle, that's more modern now, but you've had older ones where it has prayer times. And nowadays it's all digital. Again, wudu facilities explaining the importance of prayer when we're meeting. We're going to be standing in front of the Lord. We have to perform ablution. We wash ourselves, and if you have time, you can actually show them how you wash yourself, take them to the wudu area, explain, get a volunteer to do wudu, and even if one of the guests want to do it, they can actually have a go. So again, you can do this as you go along. And then the madrasa as well, the madrasa building that you have. Um, it's you can tell them this is where we teach the basics of our religion. They can learn Arabic, they learn the Quran, and they learn about Islamic studies and values and Islamic values, and they learn all the positive things. So again, evening classes or weekend classes, and you can give them some ideas and some pictures of that as well. And then just some activities that happen in the mosque. There's so many other activities that go on: youth clubs, community activities, health fairs, career fairs, exercise sessions, gym sessions. And if you don't have these activities taking place at your mosque, you can actually have a short presentation where you can actually show them this is what happens in some of our branches, because we're all part of one organization. Pretty much any community activity, youth activity that you can mention will be happening at one of our branches at some stage. So again, that's something you can share. I'm going to finish off with just the post-event review. Uh, it's important once you've done the event, once everyone goes, you need to have feedback from your attendees and volunteers. So if you take everyone's registration details at the start, you can then send them a link and they can fill a form in. And same with your volunteers to get their perspective as well. Thank you letters to attendees, stakeholders, and volunteers. Volunteers, give them certificates for volunteering as well. Have a feedback session with your team to reflect and plan ahead for the future. And this is something you should have done last year. If you haven't, make sure you do it this year. And if volunteers have spent money, reimburse them as well from the mosque, and then do a feedback report as well. And really, once you've done your open day, some people might think that's it. We've done our feedback and that's the end of it now. We move on. But really, is that it? We need to look at how we engage. The open day we mentioned, it's not about buildings, it's about building relationships. And you need to look at other activities that have taken place in other mosques. Some of our branches have informal coffee chat sessions. Now we've got brew buddies taking place on a weekly basis through the iCare initiative. Invite people through volunteering activities. So there's so many different ways that you can engage with people. And these are things that you can do on the short term. This is an activity from one of our mosques. And again, coffee evenings once a month where you invite people to come to the mosque. Interfaith, again, a very important area. And again, this is one of our newsletters from one of our branches where we had an imam, a rabbi, and a priest. And this was after Eid al-Adha, where they had an event around Prophet Ibrahim al-Islam and the linking with Eid al-Adha. So again, we've got Interfaith Week coming up in November. It's going to be a big time, a busy time for UCAM as we plan ahead for the Interfaith Week. And it's something we really want local, zonal, national teams to get involved. Locally, if you've got this set up, share ideas. If you haven't, then let's work at building their interfaith local connections. And that's a continuation of the open day. So it's not coming to an end at this open day. You're going to carry on in November and then hopefully in February with your Unity Iftar as well. And engage with people, whole different activities that we mentioned, reach out to people, visit schools, visit other places as well. It's not just about everyone visiting our mosque, we should go out as well. I think on the long term, establish a panel, a group with residents, community councils and faith leaders, and that's something we need to do. We're all on one page. The challenges are increasing as time goes on. Hold annual fairs or events, have sports events with different groups, open them up and collaborate with local groups, residents. So I finish off where we started. At the beginning, you were standing outside this temple that you'd never entered before. And someone may soon be standing outside your mosque feeling exactly the same very soon. They may not remember everything they learned, but they will remember how they were welcomed, how they were listened to, and how they were made to feel. So it's important that we look at it from the perspective of others. We reflect on how we communicate, which is very important. And ultimately, from ourselves, we're doing this to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So may Allah give everyone success in these open days. May Allah accept it from everyone. And inshallah, make it a success for everyone, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan for listening. Sorry for going over a little bit. If there's any questions, happy to take. Jazakallah khairan.